I'm Sean 37, my husband is Zach 36 male, and my son is 16 not saying his name. I divorced my ex-wife after she cheated on me for the entirety of our marriage. That was over a decade ago. It anymore. Son is mine already over and done. I met Zach when I was 28, my son was 7. Me and Zach hit it off instantly. I was finally in a place to start dating again, and thankfully he was the first person I was interested in. We connected on everything me and my ex-wife did and a million more things. People say life has a plan for you, and honestly I believe it. I'd go through a million more divorces and being cheated on over and over if I ended up with him every time. One of the big things was my son. Zach was hesitant at first just because of the situation, but he wanted a family badly and I was excited for him to meet my son. After dating for a year, I talked to my ex and told her I'm introducing our son to a guy I'm seeing, told her it's serious and I see a future with him. She was happy for me. We have a very good relationship now, just told me to tell her when I was going to do it so she can be prepared if our son had any questions for her when he visited next. Zach and my son were best friends. Did everything together. They loved playing Minecraft together. They spent hours sitting in front of the TV. I loved watching them. I was so fucking happy. The first person I found after my ex was this amazing. After about 6 months I asked Zach to move in and the rest is exactly as I've been describing. Amazing. My son started calling Zach his other dad when he was 10. Very sweet moment, which makes this hurt worse. Well, last weekend my son had 3 of his friends over. They were playing video games in his room and I just left to do grocery shopping for the week, so it was just them and Zach. I don't know how this topic came up, but things got very homophobic. My husband was sitting on the couch and I guess my son and his friends thought me and him left, but it was just me. My son's room is connected to the living room, so if you're sitting in the living room it's not super hard to hear what's going on in his room if he's being loud enough. 4 teenage boys playing video games. One of them said, "How's it feel having an F slur? I'd if I can say it or not on here, as a father." My son laughed and said, "Kinda shitty." They said my husband probably touched him when he was little and my son replied he can try it now, he'll get his ass beat. So not even being a dick to Zach, but now also threatening him over something we all know he would never do. They kept saying shit like, "Which one do you think takes it in the ass?" Probably the F slur. "At least your real dad still likes women." Just a bunch of hateful shit. My husband sat there listening to it all, silently crying. Also, Zach has spent good 4 hours a day at the gym for the last 3 years, so I'd cause getting their ass beat, but it ain't him. I got home about 2 hours later to my husband sitting in his car with a bag packed waiting for me so he could leave, but didn't want to leave my son alone. I asked, "What's going on? Why are you leaving?" and he told me everything. I tried to understand as best I could. I insisted he wasn't serious, just being a stupid kid acting tough with his friends, but it didn't matter, the damage was done. Zach left and I went inside and went off on my son. His friends left and I spent a good 3 hours going back and forth with my son. At first he was very unapologetic and kind of agreed with his friends. I asked if he actually thought my husband sexually abused him when he was younger and he said no, but kids block those kinds of memories out, so really who knows. I told him to pack his shit, living with his mother. Info: his mom lives 3 hours away, which means new school, new friends if at all, less private space as he'd have to share a room with his stepbrother at sea, just everything that you'd expect going from a single kid in a house to one of 4. My son instantly changed his attitude. He was crying, begging me not to send him away. He didn't mean it, he was just lying to seem cool to his friends. I asked why did he double down when they left and he didn't have an answer. I told him to pack his shit, leaving in the morning. Called my ex, told her the situation and she agrees he needs something drastic. What he did wasn't okay at all. Fast forward to now and my husband is back, but he cries every night. Honestly, it feels like he's mourning, which I don't want, because when you mourn you don't get over someone, you get as close to indifferent as possible to keep living your life without them. I don't want that. I want my husband and my son to have that strong bond I know they have and don't want them to throw it away over this. I don't agree with what my son did, but those accusations at minimum can ruin someone's life and at most end it. I'm disgusted with my son. He calls me every day, tells me he misses me and Zach and wants to come home. I stay strong on the phone, but after I break down and my husband tries to console me. Tells me my son can come back and he will leave, but no, I'm not doing that. I just don't know what to do. I miss my son, I miss coming home and seeing them, spending time together. I've thought about therapy for him, but he said no. You can't force therapy on someone, they'll just sit there for an hour and piss away $400. I need advice. Update 1. Not going to lie, entire OG post was basically a disaster. I expected a few replies with only one actually being helpful and then the post died. Didn't happen that way, wish it did though. So much back and forth and so much hate towards me being gay. I expected some, but holy shit. I was done with that post when someone suggested me and my husband both abused my son sexually. Just no. Disaster. I thought living in bumfuck Montana was bad with the homophobic shit I deal with. As for he update, I spent the day yesterday with my son. A lot of people accused me of not taking his claim seriously. I did. The first 30 minutes of our initial talk when this all happened was about if he actually was abused. He said no. I asked again when I got here. I made sure to let him know there is no one I'd believe over him. He won't be punished for saying the truth if he was abused for not, but I needed to know. Again, he said no, he was never touched or raped by my husband. On to the questions and his answers. Why would you say something so dangerous? My son said he was feeling rejected by my husband since as of late he hasn't been spending nearly as much time with him. Which is true. A large part of my husband's life is my son. Zach tutors him, he coaches him in his sport, basketball, he goes on morning runs with my son, he used to drive him to and from school before my son got his car. Just they both share a lot of interests, and as a kid/step-parent dynamic they spend a lot of time together. Towards the end of last year's summer when my son was still at his mother's, my husband talked to me. He said he wanted to start spending more time apart, but not that kind of apart. He wanted to have more of a social life. He wanted to be able to do things away from us, but not like separate, if that makes sense. He realized my son would be leaving for college in 2-ish years, and my son was such a large part of his life he didn't want to become depressed after he left with nothing to do. I agreed, said it was a good idea, and he had my full support as long as he still came home every night at a reasonable time and didn't let his relationship with my son suffer or anything. As of now, yes, it is different. My son doesn't need rides to school, he doesn't need tutoring, he doesn't do basketball anymore. Their hobbies are still the same, but my husband has been spending less time at home. It's not like he's gone all hours of the day and comes back at 3 a.m., but he has a healthy social life. I'd catch how to explain it. Do you realize how dangerous it is to say something like that if it isn't true? He said yes, and he didn't think anyone was listening, he was just going along with his friend's shit. That didn't make sense to me, so I asked why did he stand by his statement after I sent his friends home. He said he thought he shouldn't back down from something he says. Kind of like a ride or die Ike. I told him that's fucking stupid and never do that, especially if he regrets what he said and it wasn't true in the first place. He said he knows he realized that when it happened, but he just couldn't stop himself from keeping it up. It didn't hit him that it was serious until I told him he's going to stay with his mother. Why do you want to be friends with people that talk so much shit about your parents? He doesn't want to, but the kids bully the shit out of everyone they don't like, and he feels like he's in too deep to back out now. That I do understand. I had kids in my school like that. Bully everyone. They were cool to me though until they found out I was gay, then they fucked my last few years of high school up. I told him I get it to some degree, but he doesn't have to add into what they're saying. Small chuckle and a fuck you is usually enough to get people to move on from something. I also asked about them bullying him because they kind of were. He said yeah, but they're not that bad with it. They just rip into him every so often about having gay dads, and I guess over time it made my son feel poorly towards my husband. The distance my husband was setting with my son mixed with his friends saying the shit they do just added up to that. I told him I understood. I want to make it clear, I don't support what he said. I understand the emotions behind it though. Why didn't you talk to us about how you were feeling? He said he didn't want to start anything. My husband and him are still close, he didn't know how he felt and was more confused than anything, so why say something that would cause a fight if he didn't even know if he felt that way? I also understood this. At this point I think this is just one miscommunication after another. Open dialogue would have prevented all of this from happening. There were a lot more questions, but me and my ex ended with, do you actually feel remorseful for what you said, or are you just tired of sleeping in the same room as a 7-year-old? He's actually remorseful. Told me even if he was staying there all year he would still feel terrible over what he said about Zach. Reassured him again if anything did happen, now is the time to speak and I will believe him again. He said no. He started crying saying he just missed us. Emotional moment, we hugged, told him I loved him and that would never change. Asked him to leave the room so me and his mother could talk. We decided on a month-to-month assessment to see when he would get privileges back, ending with him coming home. There were conditions to all of this, like family therapy, solo therapy, cutting his friends off completely, which I would help with. He was against the solo therapy but came around. He asked if Zach was here, I said no, but would ask him if he wanted to come next time, which my son smiled at. I still agree sending my son to my ex-wife's was the right move. A lot of people aggressively disagree. Which is fine. My parenting style isn't for everyone. One of you told me I should beat the kids up though, so like, do I really care if some of you disagree with how I patent Ike? Not really. Situation still sucks. I'd what to say. I miss my son. He isn't coming home right now and I wish I was leaving her house with him. As it stands right now he can come back sooner. I want him back. My husband wants him back. He's wanted him back since he left. His mother is holding strong, but she also sees he's just miserable, so I think she'll break at some point and give up the guest house early. It is what it is. At the end of the night my son asked if Zach would want to hear from him so he could apologize, and I told him yes. I've told him yes a few times now. Zach would love to hear from him. I doubt he'd have to wait longer than one ring before Zach picked up. My son called him as I was leaving, so I know they spoke. Ike, about what though? When I got home Zach was feeling like shit and blaming himself more for all of this. I told him it's no one's fault, we just needed to talk to each other more. All in all I think my son is remorseful and he was just feeling trapped and isolated in a shitty situation and didn't know how to get out of. I feel for him and I wish I saw what was happening sooner. Thank you all for the advice. Or most of you. Some of you were just nasty and hateful. Someone on my first post called Stoner Therapist something like that gave good fucking advice. Now on to second story. Coworker turned passive aggressive after quitting the gym. Now she sabotages my work life while others remain blissfully unaware. I 35F work in a small department. Think like 20 people and only half speak English. I generally get along with everyone. Someone new joined the department a few months ago. At first we get along very well, and then it was a sudden turn. I think it comes from, We both joined a new gym at the same time. I've kept going, and there's a noticeable difference in my appearance now, and she didn't keep it up. I don't care that she stopped going to the gym. I go with my husband, 40 meters, and I'm more than happy going to gym classes alone. When she coming with me, she was always nice, sometimes asks for rides. I showed her to use the weight machines as my husband is teaching me how to use them and she wanted to learn. Everything was fine. Since she stopped going, the passive aggressiveness has started. Clearly she's annoyed at herself and is taking it out on me. Examples of the passive aggressiveness: talking over me loudly every time I start to speak, and she only does this to me. If I do manage to get out a sentence, immediately changing T, he's subject, so my participation has ended. Literally looking annoyed and irritated that I even exist, to the point someone else asked her what the matter was because she looked so annoyed, and it was because she was sat next to me at lunch. Now the issue is, I'm a direct person, not in a, oh I have no filter, I'm honest regardless of people's feelings kind of way. I'm direct as in, I want to ask her if she has some kind of issue, what we can do to resolve it so we can move on and work as civil grown-ups. But, I already know the personality type, she will gaslight me, play the victim, and I will be the villain. My plan is to just ride it out. I plan to move departments in the new financial year to get more experience in a different area, and this was planned before she even joined our team. She isn't the reason I'm leaving. But I have slowly started to withdraw myself, because being around her makes me feel so bad. Yesterday we had a work party. They'd hired a property with a pool and rooms to stay over. I'd made the decision not to drink or stay over, as I know if I drink, I'd end up confronting her, she'd probably cry, and the night would be ruined because of me. Instead, as I do some freelance work Sunday mornings, I told everyone I couldn't stay or drink as I had work, which is true, although if I wanted to I could have rearranged it. I also left super early, which shocked a few people and they didn't want me to go, but I didn't want to be around someone who makes me feel so unwelcome. I told them being around people drinking was making me want to drink, so I had to leave. I cried all the way home in the car. I ended up actually going out drinking with my husband, and another coworker was there who'd left early, as her boyfriend is traveling for work for a few months, so it was their last night together. So we ended up drinking and talking. So I'm worried I will have hurt some of my colleagues' feelings, when I used the excuse of not being able to drink, and then and out drinking anyway. But I honestly had to get out of there. They're all very close and like this girl, and she's a very big personality, so I can't confide in anyone. I can just count down to leave. I have had mental health issues before, where I've become paranoid and convinced everyone hates me, but this time I'm certain it's what's happening, because it's only her. I don't think anyone else hates me. But I don't understand how no one else can see this. I just needed to rant this out. I know I've brought up I think it's the gym thing. Never have I asked her why she stopped going, or even brought up to her about it, because I'd feel like I was embarrassing her. So it's like I'm banging on about it to her that she stopped, so I've not upset her in that sort of way either. Use this technique whenever she does something new. Just point it out. In front of people. Did you mean to throw away my lunch? Do I need a bigger name tag for them? Haha, hope you don't need new glasses. Oh no, you did underscore. How can we stop that from happening again? It's not about changing her, it's really about changing you. Being someone who is driven off from a party in tears is a you thing, unless she was physically threatening you or being unsafe. Maybe you have family members who made you feel powerless or weak? This is a good time to break those reactions and get strong. Oop, well you hit the nail on the head with the family members, yes. Although I'm not wanting to unpack that right now. But I've never made the connection before. I think the hardest thing for me, is I can be quite confrontational, not in a physical way, but in a way that I will just tell her. But she would love that, because then she can be the victim. Everything you've said, is also the advice my husband gave me. At the moment, with having other duties, we're currently on different lunch times, and spend very little time together, but I will stop withdrawing, and I will insert myself wherever I want, and start lightly pointing it out. I am also feeling a little petty, and may just talk non-stop about how great the gym is and how great I'm looking. But I'm not sure if I should lower myself to that, although I'd probably enjoy it. I'm just glad I'll be in a completely different building to her in a few months if all goes to plan. Update 1. After I made that post, things escalated. She also said she would be leaving in X amount of months to move to a new city, and her last day was around the same time as mine. Hers was the Friday, mine was the following Tuesday. She excluded me more than ever, always made sure to change the language to one I don't speak but the rest of them do. What started to bother me, was the people I was supposedly friends with, were still treating me as normal, but were passively doing nothing about this, so they'd all do things, go out for lunch during working hours and not invite me, but then would talk to me like everything was normal, and supported me with a job. I just couldn't marry the two things up. I honestly thought I was going crazy. Anyway, when I only had a few days left, things had got really bad, and another coworker came to me, and said she could see what was going on, that I wasn't crazy, and once the mask was lifted, I felt so much stronger. I had actually tried to confront her about if she had problem with me, and she ran away from me saying there's no problem, coward. I'd talked about having some leaving drinks, because I was moving to another building. Her last day was the Friday, and our building had about 20 people in. Everyone was invited except maybe 3 of us. My feelings were very hurt. I ended up confiding in my boss, who told me loads of people had complained about her, and she wished I'd come to her earlier. She also told me that if she hadn't have said she was leaving, she would have been sacked for her toxic behavior. I told my boss I couldn't handle all the fake goodbyes on my last day, so she agreed I could do a half day and leave without telling anyone. Which is exactly what I did. I got a message after asking about meeting up and why I'd left without saying anything. So I told them the truth, that I thought we were friends, and this is how they'd made me feel by ignoring what was happening. So we've sort of cleared the air, and we've seen each other at work events still, and it's fine, but we've said we'll meet up for a proper chat and clear everything properly. I was invited to a birthday party yesterday, and the toxic one was there. But I felt so strong. I think someone may have also said something to her, because as soon as I walked in, she put her head down and looked a bit panicked. I wasn't going to cause drama at someone's birthday party, but I did outright ignore her. I was talking to someone, and she tried to come and literally shout over me, and I didn't even acknowledge or look at her, and kept talking, and so did the person I was talking to, and she had to wait for us to finish to speak. At one point she was playing beer pong, the ball was rolling towards me, I could have stopped it with my foot, instead I stepped over it and walked to get a drink, and she was having to chase after the ball. She tried to give me an annoyed look, but I glared at her, daring her to challenge me, and she put her head down and didn't dare. Petty but felt good. At the end of the night my husband came to pick me up. He came in just to say hello to a few people. He's pretty well liked by everyone, but didn't fancy a party full of women. She tried to run over to speak to him, and he glared at her and shook his head. She stopped dead in her tracks and scurried off. So today I feel great. I feel like I took back my power, and showed her how small and weak she is without causing any drama. If she'd dared approach me, I'd have told her not to speak to me, but I'm glad it didn't come to that, as I didn't want to cause drama at someone's birthday. I also gave up drinking a few months ago, and I'm so glad, because if I got drunk I'm not sure I would have left with so much dignity. I'm not sure anyone cares or will read this, but I feel amazing today, so wanted to share how good it feels to have my power back. Edit, I'm getting some comments about coworkers not being the same as friends. I know this. In my first post I detailed everything. We were friends, we were hanging out together outside of work a lot. We also went to the gym together. She'd asked me for help with some of the weight machines, so I happily showed her. I comforted her when she was upset about some personal things. She actually stopped going to the gym, and seemed to turn on me when I was getting compliments for my progress and clear body changes. Also, even if we were never friends and just coworkers the whole time, I'd still expect some mutual respect. Speak in a language everyone understands. English is everyone's first language. BTW. Don't talk over me, don't dismiss my ideas, or try to put me down in meetings. There was clear unprofessionalism here. We are all grown-ups, there is still a level of civility and decency that we all should give in a professional environment. And actually I made it sound like we work in an office because I wanted to make sure it stayed anonymous, but actually we work in a small school, so it's extra important we set an example for the kids on how we treat each other. Honestly, it felt amazing. If I'd have been confrontational and kicked off, I don't think I'd have felt as good as I do now. I didn't even have to say anything and she cowered. It's not like she can take any actionable HR complaints about you. Oh, it was disrespectful toward me when he didn't even react to the names I was calling him. Stupid, right? That's the territory she's begun exploring. Don't give her a map. She actually left the company, we no longer work together. So I've got no worries about that. And the amount of complaints that my boss had about her, I don't think I'd have anything to worry about anyway. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she's one of these women who crush on men easily, developed a crush on your husband and created an imaginary competition with you in her head. You stuck with the gym and were making noticeable progress and she didn't stick with it. In her mind she was losing the competition, so she got nasty. I also would not be surprised if she made a pass at your husband and he rejected her. I never got vibes from her that she was into my husband, but I do think she was jealous of our relationship. We were a similar age, I'm 36, she's 34, and I was settled, and she talked a lot about wanting a relationship. But they never really spent any time together. I've actually had other women put themselves in competition with me about my husband before, and this didn't feel the same. I have to say my poor husband just wants to be left alone. He can't think of anything worse than someone hassling him with a crush. If she'd have ever come onto him, he'd have told me, and he would have laughed in her face. I honestly think she's incredibly insecure, doesn't like her body. I was making changes and have the life she wants, which is settled in a relationship, and I have stability.